Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to implement three components, the page 401, 404, and warning message. Let's go to the CoreUI, under components, create a new user control. It's not going to be actually a user control. It has to be a page WPF. Let's call it page 401. You're going to benefit from the use of navigation. It's going to consist of a Looty animation. It's going to be at the top of the text placement. I'm going to import here all the needed dependencies for the images as well as the animation, for the Looty sharp and the string resource, and for the SVG. Underneath, I'm going to stack the text as well as the button to return home. And for the orientation, it's going to be vertical. Now for the text, it should contain text 401 and the button containing an SVG file for home icon, as well as the text go back home or something like this. Whenever we click on this button, we're going to navigate back home. Therefore, I'm going to hoist this particular callback function or this event. And let's define this return home click under the code behind. I'm going just to add the transform to translate basically the Y position of this stack panel. I'm going to add it here at the top, the render transform, to push a little bit the whole container or the stack panel by 25 down from the center of the screen to leave some extra space for the Looty animation that has 600 for the height. Now I'm going to hoist this method or this event, a public event, event handler, nullable. Let's call it on return home click. I'm gonna do here on return home click and invoke. For the first argument, it should be this, and second argument, it's the routed event arguments. And that's pretty much it for this particular page 401. With the same manner, going to define the page 404. Let's import first of all the needed dependencies. And I'm gonna copy everything here and change it accordingly. Now let's go to the code behind and add the same function. And that's pretty much it for the page 401 and 404. The last component that we have to implement in this video, it's the warning message. It starts by defining the dependency properties for this particular component. We need the text and the automation ID, and I would like to add an icon to this warning message. Let's set, for example, the icon height or the icon size and the icon name and the background for this component or this warning message. And you have to customize whether this particular warning message should be visible or not. Now I would like to set the data context to this, and whenever this particular warning message is ready, loaded, let's attach to it an event handler. Let's call it onloaded. And let's define the components. I'm going to add here border. I'm going to attach a name to this particular element. Let's call it root. And for the background should be binding from the dependency property. For the border thickness, let's set it to 1 and the corner radius medium border. For the render transform to center, transform origin, X position, it should be 0.5, and for the Y position, it should be 1. Otherwise, the animation is going to look horrible. I'm going to add the name of the animation to be applied under the render transform to be accessible in the code behind. Now, I would like to add some shadow to this particular container by doing border, effect, and you have to do here drop shadow, effect, blur radius, let's say, for example, 8, and the opacity 0.5. For the shadow depth, let's do 2, for example, and the color should be black. Now we are done basically with the look of this border. Now we have to represent basically the items in a horizontal sequence. Let's use here a grid. For the width of the first element should be according to the icon size. And for the second element, it should occupy 75 of the remaining space. The first element, image, SVG file, and the text that should be shown, let's set it to :1. Nothing substantial. I have set some customization here for the margin, the horizontal alignment, and vertical content alignment. The fill color should be basically primary foreground. It's going to be white. And we have to pass here the icon name from the dependency property, and the rest is pretty straightforward. The automation ID for testing purposes, because we need actually this automation ID for testing. Now let's come back to the warning message and let's try to animate this particular container. We can access the root element, which is the border, and you have to set the visibility. Now, if it's assigned as visible from the dependency property, it should be visible. Otherwise, it has to be collapsed. We're going to control actually the animation on the visibility. Therefore, under the dependency property, is visible. Here we have to use properly changed callback. Let's call it on is visible changed. First of all, if we are under a warning message control, if the dependency object D is warning message, we're going to animate basically this container. Let's call this function animate. Let's create this function. First things first, we need to make sure we are animating the actual scale transform that we have done right here. If this is null, we have to do an early return. Now, if it is visible, set the root visible to visible. It's going to ensure shown before animating. Now let's define the animation, double animation basically. If it's shown or it's visible, it has to be 1, otherwise 0. We're going to animate the Y property. That's why we have set here 0.5 to start from the center of the Y axis. I think that I have said earlier, this is the X axis. However, this is the Y axis. The duration, let's say, for example, 300 milliseconds. And the failed behavior, it's going to be failed behavior, hold end. Now, when the animation is finished, if it's not shown or if it's not visible, we have to change the visibility of this container root to collapsed. Now we have just registered this callback event handler. It's not going to be executed yet until running the animation by doing animated scale transform, begin animation. And we have to pass here the scale transform and the scale Y property and animation as a second argument. And that's pretty much it for the implementation of this warning message. All right, so let's do some previews for the page 404, 401, and the warning message. Let's start with the page 401. Now, because this is a page, we're not going to be able to put it directly here under the window. What we have to do, let's wrap everything within a scroll viewer, and let's give it a name, main scroll viewer. Inside, we have to do a stack panel and put a frame to show dynamically the page. For the frame, let's give it a name, main frame. For the minimum height, it's going to be extra small. As you can see here, we have set correctly the style of the scroll viewer. Next, we're going to set the navigation UI visibility to hidden. That's all for this page. Let's switch to code behind. First things first, we need to create a new instance of the page 401. And we have to attach or to register the callback handler for on return home screen plus an equal. And let's call it with the same name and create this method. Afterward, we have to do main frame to navigate to this destination. And you have to pass the screen where to navigate. The frame is going to be like a placeholder for navigation. I'm going to show a warning message, like for example, we are on home screen or home screen click, something like this. That's pretty much it. With the same manner, let's create 404, pretty much the same thing. Now let's switch to the code behind and we will do the same thing. Now before attaching the windows to the dedicated preview holder or the preview host, we're going to implement another preview for warning message. Everything within a stack, panel, whatever you want to do here, you can just keep it as grid, it doesn't matter. Let's use basically the CoreUI and do here warning message. Let's keep it as stack panel because I want to show under the button to toggle the visibility of this warning message. First of all, we have to attach is visible from the view model. We're going to create it later on, as well as the background, which is warning. Let's set the height 100 for the margin 16, for example. The icon name from the core images, CoreUI images information, for example. The icon size, let's say, for example, 16. It's going to be very small. Let's do 40. Let's hide the warning message whenever we click or we double click on this container. And for the text, let's hard code this, no problem. Now it's invisible underneath to control the visibility of this warning message. 100 and content, let's say show alert. And whenever we click on this, let's just keep it at this button click. All right. Now let's switch to code behind. All right, let's go back first of all to the CoreUI view model. Observable property, private is visible, equal false. And let's add an action or just a function. It's going to be public, toggle visible. By doing is visible is the opposite. Give it some time to generate the code and re-index. Now let's come back to the warning message preview. I'm going to create here a private read-only CoreUI view model. Just do it here directly, new, and let's call it a day. And you have to assign here the data context from view model. Whenever we double click on this warning message, let's not hide this, just show a box. Now, whenever we click on the button to toggle the visibility, toggle visible. Now let's attach the 3 previews to the main window. Now, under the main window, let's add 3 buttons for each preview. Let's run the preview. Let's see the first component of the first page, which is page 401. All right, we have the animation and it's set correctly, which is good. Let's click on Return Home. Return Home button clicks. We don't have any binding issue. And for the record, we have the scrollable container, the scrollable, which is styled like this. Now let's click this preview with the same manner for the page 404. You can add here font weight to bold if you will, but it's not necessary. Now for the warning message, all right, let's show the alert, which is good. That's what I want. This is how it's gonna look like under the login form or register form or wherever we want to use this warning message. It looks good. It has some kind of shadow and elevation. For one component, it's fine for performance, but if we have to put multiple warning messages, for example, 3 or 4, it's going to affect badly the performance of our application. At least for my computer, I don't know how it's gonna look like under a powerful computer. And that's gonna wrap up our today's video. For the next video, going to implement the remaining components, pagination, progress button, the theme switch, and the skeleton loader. I hope you have learned something new. See you in the next one, and happy coding!